Hi, I'm Heather, and this is Oliver Bentley, my Warrior of Light. Yay! I started playing Final Fantasy XIV for the first time on May 26th, and I went through the entire main story, A Realm Reborn, Heaven's Ward, Stormblood, Shadowbringers, and Endwalker, and finished it on July 25th. I knew nothing of this game before I started. I didn't look up reviews. I didn't know anything about the story, and I had held back for so long because I knew it was an MMO and I had no interest in playing an MMO. But my brother convinced me to at least check out the free trial, and 2 months later, I finished the entire MSQ, or the main story quest. So, what was it like playing a game that took 10 years to get to this point in 2 months? In this video, I want to share what my experience was like and what my impression is of Final Fantasy XIV as a new player in 2022. Now, to give you some background, I am 37 years old. I've been a lifelong gamer, but I'm definitely in a different phase of life where a lot of my IRL friends have kids, they're busy. I also have priorities and obligations. So when it comes to finding a new game, especially RPGs, which are typically the games that I'm into, I'm not necessarily trying to find the best game to play. I just want to find a game that I enjoy spending my time on. And usually it's because of a good story. I have played 2 MMOs before. First was Diablo 2, which I played like in high school, college, and then World of Warcraft, which I got super into in college and then played for a couple years on and off. And as much as I loved both Diablo 2 and World of Warcraft, the only thing I remember is how much of a time suck both those games were, especially World of Warcraft. I was totally that person who brought my laptop to class and played in class. Don't do that. My favorite game of all time is Chrono Trigger, and I'm definitely a huge fan of the Final Fantasy series. I think I've played every single one except for 11 and 14 because they're MMOs. And earlier this year, I was at a point where I was really looking for a good RPG. I felt like I had played through everything on the Nintendo Switch. I actually got so hungry for a good RPG that I went back to my DS because I was like, oh, the DS like online stores going to close, so this is my chance to download some games and, you know, catch up on whatever I missed. And then I started looking for RPGs on my phone, like iOS apps. I was like finding myself spending $3.99, like $5 on these phone games. And here my brother was constantly talking about Final Fantasy XIV and saying like, you can play this game for free. Final Fantasy XIV, the free trial, is definitely going to be as good as what I get out of an iOS app. There really was no risk in giving it a try, and that's where my expectations were. I'm estimating that it took me about 350 hours to go through the entire main story quests, and now that all is said and done, what did I think? So here's how I would describe it. You know that feeling where you look back at something and you think like, wow, I can't believe there was a time where I enjoyed that for the first time, whether it's a show or a game or even a new hobby. I remember Steins Gate, like I had never watched anime before. And then when I discovered Steins Gate, I was like, I can't believe this has just been sitting here for years. And I had no idea. Same with The Expanse novel book series. Like I don't read sci-fi, and then The Expanse is the best sci-fi. That's how I feel about Final Fantasy XIV. I can't believe that this game has just been sitting there because I loved the main story so much. I love this game so much. I love Final Fantasy XIV so much. It's a huge reason why I'm making this video because my husband is so sick of me talking about it. I'm just like giddy in our house, like, oh my god, I love this game. Not a day goes by where I don't play this game. I can't explain to you how much I love it. I will say that I am glad that I happened to wait until Endwalker was released to get into Final Fantasy XIV because I'm definitely a binger, and I have so much like respect and appreciation for the people who have been on the Final Fantasy XIV journey for years. Like I can't even imagine what that experience must be like, but as someone who blasted through the entire thing in 2 months, like it was amazing. Everything ties in so well. Everything just like connects, and The character development is awesome. The fact that I could just kind of go through one main arc uninterrupted and not having to wait was, I mean, that's why I did, because it was awesome and I was super into it. But it also is really cool to be at the point where I got to watch a live letter from the producer for the first time. So the development team does like a live stream to talk about all the patch announcements and stuff. And it's a completely different experience, like getting to be excited for what's being worked on and all the new content coming out. I had been avoiding everything about Final Fantasy XIV Online because I didn't want to see any spoilers, but now that I'm all caught up, I'm like, oh my gosh. So anyway, one of many things that I love about Final Fantasy XIV, which I'm going to break down in the rest of this video. So first, I want to talk about the MMO aspect of Final Fantasy XIV, because this was the thing that was make or break for me for so long, because I just refused to acknowledge anything else because this thing was an MMO. And I want to say, through the entire main story quest, I think I played 95% of this game totally solo and absolutely enjoyed it. I know there are a lot of people who play with friends. There are a lot of people who get into Final Fantasy XIV for the MMO aspect of this, but that's not what I wanted. Actually, playing with other players was like the scariest part of the game, and not in a good way. It was like super anxiety inducing.
So remember, get on the platform now, because the poison looks like it's purple, right?
What platform? I don't know. I'm following everybody.
You know the green thing? So stand on the green platform.
Okay, stand in the
get
green.
off it.
Oh my god, I'm like so not contributing to this situation, and it's
No,
totally
don't even
Oh,
worry about it.
It feels very, I don't know, obvious that I am a newbie in 2022, but I didn't want that to stop me from enjoying what is just a good RPG, and it didn't, which is great. If you haven't played Final Fantasy XIV for that reason, because you don't want to play an MMO, I'll tell you, you actually don't have to play with other people for most of the game. There are parts where you do have to kind of do a dungeon with other people, but they are working on making it so you can play the dungeons with just NPCs. So even in A Realm Reborn, like whenever I could go through the duties or the dungeons with NPCs, I did every single time, and it was awesome. I think their goal is to make the whole thing soloable, which I would so appreciate, because it is, like, not to turn anyone off if you don't like MMOs, but it was really weird being the person in the group who is experiencing the Praetorium for the very first time, knowing that the other people are on their like 100th run of this. They've memorized the dialogue. There's memes. There's like, at this point, I think I myself have done Praetorium like 40 times because of the Moogle tokens or whatever. I actually started playing Final Fantasy XIV on my computer and then ended up moving to my PlayStation, my PS4. I was like spending so much time in my office, and like my dogs and my husband were on the other side of the house, and I was like, I'm gonna get this for PS4 so I can be on the couch and like hang out with everybody. And I actually prefer playing on the PS4, just to emphasize, like, it's not an MMO where I'm like, talking to people or anything. Like, I really am just playing my character like I would with any other game. The other thing I really didn't like about having to play with other people is that because I was the newbie, I felt compelled to watch guides or look up guides on how to tackle dungeon, because basically what you want to know are the mechanics of a boss, so that like you're not the person that causes the entire team to wipe. I wish I could just experience everything with no pressure, right? Like I don't want to know what the mechanics are. I want to find them out as I'm going through it for the first time, because what ended up happening is that I would read up these guides or watch these videos and see who the bosses were. They were kind of like spoilers. And then it really was just pressure. It's like, I just don't want to be that person. Like, I want to do a good job. I know I don't want to take up anybody's time. Like, I know people are just like trying to get through the dungeon, and I'm over here like, you know, trying to read the lore thing here, and like no one wants to do that. Everyone's running as fast as they can. Like, this is why I really appreciated the times where I could play with NPCs, because it's just like I could play it on my own terms. I could die, I could wipe 1,000 times. No one is gonna like correct me or tell me how to play or anything. I will say, and I'll go into this more in depth later, the Final Fantasy XIV community has been awesome. Like, everyone has been super helpful and kind and friendly, so it's not like anyone ever gave me ish for being a newbie. Now that I'm caught up with the main story and I'm exploring everything else that Final Fantasy XIV has to offer, yes, I would love to play with other people, to make friends, and, you know, to join a free company. I actually joined a free company once, and it was just like, again, there's just such a gap between me being a new player and like the other people there. I was like geeking out about the story, and like no one, it's not they don't care, but it's like, I don't know, it felt awkward, so I left. Again, another part of why I'm making this video, because like I really am just like gushing with excitement for Final Fantasy XIV, and I have nobody to share it with, so I'm gonna talk to the camera instead. The solo duties were my favorite because it's like they were so story driven, and you know, you had to do them solo. And I saw some things online of like, why are, you know, there's people like, oh, why do solo duties, or why are the solo duties so long, and like, you know, my friends have to wait and stuff like that. I'm like my favorite part of the game, because I don't have friends. Like, it was probably the most exciting part, because they were so like high intensity, super story driven, and like, you know, it felt like, oh my gosh, this is the boss, like the boss that I alone have to get through. That being said, the community of Final Fantasy XIV is one of my favorite things about it. And that's not necessarily like player to player, but the fandom as a whole is just so positive and really encouraging. You can just like Final Fantasy XIV, or you can get super into it, and people appreciate wherever you are on that spectrum, and I just love that. So for example, there was this thing called Luncarcon. I had no idea what Luncarcon was. I don't even know how I found out about it, but it's this like in-game con that was planned by, I think, some pretty big streamers. Like, you know, I have no idea who these people are. Actually, I knew because Jesse Cox is someone whose videos I started watching because he did videos on like the lore of Final Fantasy XIV, and he was doing a meet and greet, and I was just like, this is how into the game I am. I want to line up with my character so that I can take a screenshot with this person's character, like in the game, in this digital world. There was like a line to get in. I know this sounds so bizarre as I'm talking about. There was a line to like get in, and look at this.
So if you're not gonna be saying, look at this huge line. Oh my god, it keeps going.
Like, in a world that seems to be really negative and cynical and jaded and skeptical and like really almost, you know, toxic at times, coming to the community and the world of Final Fantasy XIV, where everyone buys into it and everyone's okay with doing what they have to do to make it so that everyone can enjoy the experience, that's so rare. I love that. Like, I love that in a small way I get to be part of a community that is just as supportive as that. I just love that so much. Also, when you're a new player to Final Fantasy XIV, you get a sprout icon next to your name. So like everybody knows that you are a newbie to this game, which I thought was like super awkward at first, but actually makes so much sense. And then when my sprout icon went away, I was so sad. I was like, oh my gosh, is there any way I could turn it back on? Because I'm still such a newbie to this game. I've never done my first raid. Like, I've never done, you know, all these things. I was like, I don't want my sprout icon to go away. I don't want people thinking that I know what I'm doing. Like, I want them to know that I might need a little help. I was definitely not ready to take the training wheels off. But again, even if I had to type in the chat, oh, this is my first time doing this dungeon or something like that, everyone has always been helpful and nice. But my impression is that the seasoned Final Fantasy XIV players really do want to encourage and support the Sprouts, the new Final Fantasy 14 players, in an effort to like support the game as a whole, because they love it so much. They want it to continue. They want it to grow. They want more people to experience the awesomeness that is Final Fantasy 14. So it's like, it's nice that there isn't like, oh, you know, you're a newbie, you don't know what you're doing, you're the weakest link, you're dragging the team down. Like there's none of that. All that pressure was definitely something I put on myself. Next, the story. So if there's one thing that I did expect to be good with Final Fantasy 14, it is the story, because I figured, you know, it's got to be at least as good as any other Final Fantasy story. You may have heard that, oh yeah, it takes like hours to get into the story of Final Fantasy 14. And even my brother kept telling me like, just like, you know, skim through A Realm Reborn, like you don't need to pay attention because it gets good at Heaven's Word. Like he just kept telling me like, get to Heaven's Word. What I will say, as someone who went through the whole game in 2 months, is that it's not that A Realm Reborn is bad, it's that it just gets better. I'll tell you that the story of A Realm Reborn is like, it's not a unique story. There's literally an empire, there's rebellion, there's good versus evil. It's not like, you know, a revolutionary story. But again, that doesn't mean that it's a bad story. It just gets better. And I hate the fact that new players can pay for a story skip to like just skip the story and get straight to, you know, the expansions. And if you want to do that, great. But I think that the other games only get better because you've played through the whole thing. And I honestly wish that I had paid more attention to A Realm Reborn. I found myself like watching videos that did recaps and you know, analysis on A Realm Reborn. You can think of it as like almost like the pilot. And if you don't know, it's because A Realm Reborn and the production of it is that it was a remake of the original Final Fantasy 14 that was like not good. It's like a bad launch. There's a whole story. I've watched the Noclip documentary, which is amazing, by the way. If you haven't watched it, definitely check it out. But I don't see A Realm Reborn or like 2.0 as an excuse for a bad story. If anything, it makes me appreciate A Realm Reborn more. You know, when you get super into a game or super into a show or super into a story, you fall in love with the characters and you just want more and more and more. That's what Final Fantasy 14 offers. Like, it just keeps going. Literally, like, just the longest video game story I've played. The other thing that I really like about the story is that you are the Warrior of Light. Maybe other MMOs do this or games have done this since and I just completely missed the boat. But like with other RPGs, you play as one of the main characters and you are controlling the main character. But with Final Fantasy 14, like you create the character and your character is the Warrior of Light. All the cutscenes, all the story, it has your name, it has your character with exactly what you're wearing. The character that you spend a lot of time with is the character that all the other NPCs are referring to. That is cool. When I watch other people's Final Fantasy 14 videos, I'm like, who is that? Oh, it's their Warrior of Light. Which is so, it's like weird that the way that we're experiencing it, like we're seeing something different. It's honestly weird to see like promo materials or posters with all the main characters and like my character isn't there. I can definitely say that this Final Fantasy is the best story out of all of them. It's just like, how can it not be? Because it goes so far. It's comedy, it's, you know, friendship, it's good versus evil, it's sci-fi, it's fantasy, it's so many genres that there's a part of the story that's going to appeal to anyone, regardless if you're a gamer or not, you're a hardcore RPG fan or not. I can't believe someone wouldn't like it. I can see how someone wouldn't have, I don't know, the patience to get through it, which brings me to my next point, being a newbie. So being a newbie, super overwhelming, like not gonna lie. I actually streamed my very first time playing Final Fantasy 14 and was so on the fence about it that I was like, I'm not gonna stream anymore. I was so confused. And I'm somebody who considers themselves to be a gamer who has played MMOs before, but there's just so much. See, this is where I'm like, I don't even know where I'm looking. Like, I don't even know what I'm fighting. I'm like not targeted. I'm gonna die now. Okay.
Oh,
Wait, I can't. I'm so confused. If you've been playing Final Fantasy XIV for years, like you have been there with the release of every new feature. Whereas like for me, I'm stumbling upon the whole world that's already built and like everything is happening at the same time. So I made the decision very early on to only focus on the main story quest, because that's how I would play any other game. I would play any other RPG going through the main story quest. I am also like the completionist side quest type of person, but I said Final Fantasy XIV is a subscription model. Like I could totally just keep paying and playing and going through all of that after I get through the story. So that helped to simplify everything, the world, the features, all the different ways that you can play the game. But even hours after playing the game, there were so many things that I didn't understand. I was super afraid to sell anything because I wasn't sure like which vendor I should sell it to, what should I sell, like what's worth keeping. I didn't know you can sprint until after I got a mount. Like I don't know, I just missed that. I didn't glamour until Shadowbringers, and then when I found out how to glamour, I just glamored the same thing because I really liked how my character looked in this outfit. There was a point in the story early on where I actually wasn't high enough level to take on the next main story quest. So I was like, how do I just level up outside of the quests? And then there was like these Levmet things and fates, and like I didn't understand what those were. So I literally just went and killed like enemies one by one until I had enough experience to get the next quest. I definitely had to watch a few intro videos and beginner guides, and Final Fantasy XIV actually just released their own beginner series, which from the reaction that I've seen, I heard is pretty cringe. But honestly, like as a new player, who cares? Like I would have loved the info. I just felt like there were so many things in the way of me getting to enjoy this story. So anything to help would have been helpful, right? And that's why I went to YouTube and watched a bunch of beginner guides. I'm actually hoping to make my own as someone who like played through the whole thing in 2022. But overall, Final Fantasy XIV is so forgiving as a game. Like you don't need any gaming experience or MMO experience. If you don't figure it out, like you're not missing anything. There's nothing that you can't do later or change. Next up, PvP. I actually can't say anything about PvP because I've never done PvP in Final Fantasy XIV, and I have zero interest in ever doing PvP. I have no desire to bring in competition into my Final Fantasy XIV experience. I'd rather team up with other players and like defeat a hard boss or something like that. And how is it compared to World of Warcraft? I couldn't help but compare Final Fantasy XIV to World of Warcraft because it's the closest thing I know, but they are so vastly different games. It's not even worth comparing. But here are the differences that I love the most. So first, I love that you can play every class on the same character, because again, you get so attached to your character, and the fact that you'd have to like start a completely new character just to switch from like a healer to a tank and then play all the quests over again. You don't have to do that in Final Fantasy XIV. All you do is change weapon and you're the same character, but now you're a different class. So you can literally level all of them up to max level, and it's all in the same character, which is awesome. I love the duty roulette. You don't have to like manually type in the chat looking for group. You can. There's also group finder or party finder, which I've never used, but the duty roulette will basically just match you with other players that are trying to do like the same dungeon. But I love that like even at 7 a.m. my time, I could jump into a dungeon. I don't have to like find a party. I don't know if like other MMOs have done that since I quit playing WoW, but it's just so convenient. I love the story and the lore. I remember I was watching a video, I think it was one of Jesse Cox's video, but he was talking about like his experience with WoW versus Final Fantasy XIV, and saying like, oh, if you think back to World of Warcraft, like could you summarize what the story was about? And I honestly couldn't tell you. Like I spent so many hours playing that game, but Like, I can't like succinctly describe to you the story. I can't even like kind of describe to you the story. I have no idea. I just know it took place in Azeroth. But with Final Fantasy, it's like story first. It's so story driven. You can ask anybody and they can describe to you like what Heaven's Ward is about and what Stormblood is about and so on, or even just like Final Fantasy XIV in general. And the lore, like, I am such a geek for it. I love it. Like, I love how much of the world is built out. This is what I wish for all the stories that I love. I wish that I can just like throw myself into it and get completely into it and find out every detail. I cannot get enough of this world. And if you want it, it's there. And probably my favorite thing about Final Fantasy XIV versus World of Warcraft is that is so much more about customization. I don't even think there was any customization in World of Warcraft. At least when I played, it was more about like having the full set of some super rare gear that you have to, you know, just keep grinding until you finally get the whole set. And it's like everyone would recognize it because everyone knows what it looks like. But with this, it's like there is no best gear. I mean, I'm sure there is that, but people have so much fun dressing up their character in all kinds of stuff, like literally bikinis to dragoon armor to like characters from other Final Fantasies to like just absolutely whatever you want. That's the fun part, is that like there is no best, and it allows the player to define what they think is best for them. You can literally enjoy the game how you want to. There's no like end goal. There's no like this is what it means to be the best Final Fantasy XIV player. It's just however you want to do it. And I absolutely love that. The customization is honestly crazy because if you don't know, you can do this thing called glamour where you can, you know, have a piece of gear. Say you have like a sword that has awesome stats, but you actually like the look of this lower, you know, level stat sword instead. So you can take the look of that sword and glamour it on to your more powerful sword. So it'll have the stats of your powerful sword, but it'll have the look of the other sword. And so like, just imagine all the kinds of like combinations and customization that people come up with. It gives a sense of creation and individuality to the player in a way that's like, I think very rare in video games, because it's not like I'm playing a character, it's my character. So to wrap it up, I cannot explain to you how much I love Final Fantasy XIV. I'm so thankful that my brother convinced me to finally give it a shot. It's funny because when I started playing, getting really into it, he got super busy and totally stopped playing. So I'm not kidding when I say I've played most of this game completely solo. But that's not to say that I'm opposed to it. I would love to play with other people that, you know, just want to enjoy the game just like I do. So if you want to, I don't know, connect or send me a tell, I'm on Behemoth. My character is Oliver Bentley. And if you haven't played Final Fantasy XIV yet and you're still on the fence, this is the perfect time to give it a try. Start like I did. Start with a free trial. You can get so much game. There's no like gameplay restrictions in terms of how many hours you can play on the free trial. You can play through all of A Realm Reborn and Heaven's Ward and get all the way up to level 60 for free. So thanks for watching. And again, if you want to hang out in Final Fantasy XIV, I'm on the Behemoth server. My character's name is Oliver Bentley. See you in the next one. Bye.